I wasn't born into sovereignty. I had to remember it. The world tried to shape me into something smaller, something predictable, something that fit inside their systems. Schools taught me how to obey. Jobs taught me how to trade my time for someone else's vision. Even success, the kind people celebrate, still kept me inside borders that were never mine to begin with. But something deeper was always calling. A voice older than any law, louder than any expectation. A reminder that my roots run through bloodlines that never surrendered. A reminder that freedom isn't a certificate or a status. It's a mindset. It's a responsibility. It's a return. The shift came quietly at first, a moment of clarity, then another. I started seeing how society was built like a maze. Debt here, paperwork there, distractions everywhere. The more I watched, the more I realized none of it was designed for us. Not for people with vision, not for people meant to build. So I made a decision, not to escape the system, but to rise above it. Not to destroy anything, but to create something stronger. That was the beginning of the sovereign ecosystem. Every idea I carried, every trust, every entity, every plan, came from that first spark of awareness. I learned that sovereignty isn't loud. It's focused. It's disciplined. It's the courage to build a world that reflects who you truly are, not who they want you to be. And so chapter 1 begins where all awakenings begin, with a single realization. You can't be free until you define freedom for yourself. This is where my journey started. Reclaiming my mind, restructuring my foundation, and choosing a path where legacy becomes architecture, not accident. The sovereign ecosystem wasn't created in a moment. It was remembered, one truth at a time. Chapter 1, The Vision, Rebuilding a Sovereign Future. This is the story of a people reclaiming their power, a story of sovereignty, heritage, technology, and generational purpose, woven together into an ecosystem called Iron Roots. Before we talk about currency, satellites, trusts, or engineering, we must begin with why. Why rebuild anything at all? Why construct a system so large that it stands outside the boundaries of what most people believe is possible? Because the system we were born into was never designed for us. There comes a moment in every generation when someone realizes that the limits placed on them were never theirs to carry. For our ancestors, it came with removal, warfare, and survival. For us, it arrives through financial systems that extract value, through federal oversight that restricts opportunity, through education that separates children from culture, and through a world that rewards dependency while punishing independence. Iron Roots is the answer to that awakening. It is a sovereign blueprint, a financial, cultural, and technological ecosystem built not just to survive, but to restore what was taken. This ecosystem was not created for profit alone. It was created so families, your children, and your grandchildren can move through life with the power, dignity, and economic freedom that our people were historically denied. Iron Roots Trust becomes the heart. Firecoin and INTLX coin become the blood flow. Solar energy becomes the breath. Satellite networks become the nervous system. Youth programs and leadership academies become the living memory that carries culture forward. Every part of this book builds toward one mission: to create a self-sustaining, sovereign economy that belongs to the unconquered. For generations, Native communities were framed as beneficiaries, never owners. Consumers, never builders. Objects of law, never architects of their own systems. The result is a structure where tribes may run casinos, but cannot freely run their own monetary systems. Where tribal businesses create wealth that leaks out before it lifts the people. Where children are taught to memorize information, but never to command power. Iron Roots exist to correct that imbalance, not by fighting the old system, but by building something more powerful. A private sovereign network that operates through trust law, technology, and cultural intelligence. Everything in this audiobook is not just a plan, it is an invitation to rebuild what was lost, to reclaim what was blocked, to redesign what was broken, to give your children and grandchildren a world where wealth is normal, where culture is honored, where sovereignty is real, and where their last name carries proven strength. We are not waiting for approval. We are not asking permission. We are building our own system. End of Chapter 1. Pamarna Chapter 2. The Legacy, Bloodline, Jurisdiction, and Tribal Autonomy. Legacy is more than history. Legacy is the living thread that connects who we were, who we are, and who we are becoming. For sovereign people, that thread is sacred, carried through bloodline, land, language, and the unbroken will to remain unconquered. To understand the ecosystem we are building, you must understand the authority behind it. Not authority granted by an agency, but authority inherited through lineage, survival, and ancestral right. This chapter is about the foundation that makes every part of Iron Roots possible: the bloodline, the jurisdiction, the autonomy, and the reason this entire system can stand on its own. 1. Bloodline as jurisdiction. For many communities, identity is cultural. For sovereign nations, identity is also legal. Your lineage is not just a story, it is jurisdiction. It determines who you answer to and who has the right to claim authority over you. The Seminole people are one of the few nations in the world who never surrendered, never signed away their sovereignty, never accepted defeat. That matters, because a people who were never conquered cannot be legally folded into a system created to control them. Your bloodline is not just heritage, it is lawful autonomy. It is the reason Iron Roots can operate as a private sovereign structure without needing permission from state or federal institutions. 2. The boundaries of power: tribal, state, federal, and private jurisdiction. To build a sovereign ecosystem, you must understand the borders of power. There are 4 layers of authority: tribal jurisdiction, the original sovereign; federal jurisdiction, the system that attempts to oversee tribes; state jurisdiction, which has no authority inside recognized tribal boundaries; private trust jurisdiction, which stands outside government control when structured correctly. Iron Roots Trust lives in this 4th category. A private sovereign trust is not a corporation. It is not a government agency. It is not a public entity. It is a legal fortress designed to manage assets, currency, technology, and family lineage without the interference of external authorities. This is how sovereign families preserve wealth, not through loopholes, but through ancient and modern rights woven into a single structure. 3. Why tribal autonomy must expand beyond government. Many believe tribal sovereignty only exists inside reservation lines, but sovereignty is not land alone. It is a people, a lineage, a set of rights that follow descendants everywhere they go. The challenge is not whether sovereignty exists. The challenge is how much of it is being used. Federal systems encourage tribes to rely on grants, programs, and casinos instead of building industries, currencies, energy grids, and technology networks. That is dependency disguised as support, and dependency is a threat to generational survival. True autonomy requires control of money, control of land, control of energy, control of communication networks, control of education, control of identity. This ecosystem is built to reclaim all of it. 4. Why bloodline authority matters for the Iron Roots ecosystem. Every trust, every corporation, every satellite node, every token, every ledger, every educational program is anchored in lineage. Without bloodline jurisdiction, you would be building inside someone else's framework, but with it, you are building outside their reach. This is the power behind the system. The trust is sovereign because the lineage is sovereign. The currency is sovereign because the trust is sovereign. The satellite network is sovereign because the data routes through private jurisdiction. The entire ecosystem functions because the foundation is unbroken. This chapter is not about pride. It is about structure. It is about the lawful origin that gives Iron Roots the ability to stand independent, compliant, protected, and unstoppable. 5. A legacy that demands continuation. When you build something for yourself, it ends with you. When you build something for your children, it becomes a legacy. When you build something for your ancestors, it becomes a duty. This ecosystem is not just for today, it is for the next 7 generations. For the children who will walk into the world confident in their identity. For the youth who will learn Eleponke, economics, and sovereignty at the same time. For the families who will own their homes, their land, their currency, their education, and their future. Legacy is not what you leave behind when you die. Legacy is what you build while you are alive so your people never have to start over again. This is the purpose of Iron Roots, a system built on bloodline, a structure protected by trust law, a currency backed by assets, a network powered by sovereignty, a vision carried forward by those who refuse to be anything less than unconquered. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3, the problem with the modern system. The modern world calls itself advanced, but advancement means nothing if the structure beneath it is designed to limit the people living inside it. Before we build a sovereign ecosystem, we must understand the systems that already shape our lives. Systems that were created without us, systems that were never meant to elevate us, and systems that quietly extract power from the very communities they claim to serve. This chapter reveals the hidden architecture of control, economic, educational, governmental, and explains why the Iron Roots ecosystem must stand apart. 1. The system was designed for dependence, not independence. From the moment a child enters school, they are placed on a path. Not a path of leadership, not a path of ownership, but a path of compliance. They learn to memorize, they learn to repeat, they learn to follow routines. But they are never taught to build systems, create value, or understand power. This is not an accident. Western educational models were designed to produce workers, not sovereign thinkers. Employees, not owners. Obedience, not autonomy. The result is a world where people graduate with information, but no real tools for self-governance, economic control, or generational wealth. The modern system trains you to fit in, not to rise above. 2. Financial structures that extract. Instead of empower banks, credit systems, taxes, interest rates, insurance, mortgages, most people move through these structures without ever realizing they were engineered to drain wealth rather than build it. For Native families and marginalized communities, the imbalance is even deeper. Loans come with higher risk. Assets are undervalued. Communities are targeted for predatory financial products. And wealth leaks out faster than it can be created. The federal government calls it support. But support that requires dependence is not support. It is a leash. True sovereignty demands financial systems that circulate wealth internally, not funnel it outward. This is why Iron Roots creates its own currencies, ledgers, trusts, and revenue cycles. Because you cannot build freedom on top of structures designed to keep you controlled. 3. How oversight became overreach. Every structure, tribal, state, or federal, claims to protect the people, but protection without empowerment becomes a cage. For tribes, oversight has come through federal grants tied to strict rules, economic programs that limit competition, restrictions on lands, industries, and resources, systems where approval is required for every step toward independence. And when a tribe tries to innovate with energy, finance, or technology, it is often redirected back into compliance. This is overreach, soft, subtle, wrapped in paperwork and regulations, but overreach all the same. If a people cannot control their own economy, they are not sovereign. They are supervised. Iron Roots breaks that pattern by operating privately, lawfully, and outside the jurisdiction of external restrictions. 4. The trap of partial sovereignty. Many tribes today exist in a twilight state, sovereign enough to be responsible but not sovereign enough to be free, sovereign enough to be taxed, audited, or regulated, but not sovereign enough to build their own currency, their own banking systems, their own education, or their own energy infrastructure. This is partial sovereignty, the illusion of freedom without the substance of power. It leaves communities dependent on casinos instead of industries, on grants instead of revenue, on federal permission instead of family lineage. Iron Roots is built to correct this, not through confrontation, but through architecture, through systems that do not rely on government frameworks, through private trust jurisdiction, through asset-backed currency, through autonomous technology. Sovereignty must evolve. It must expand beyond what the federal government allows. 5. Why a new system must be built instead of repaired. The modern system is not broken. It is functioning exactly as designed. To maintain hierarchy, to centralize wealth, to shape compliance, and to keep communities dependent on structures they do not control. You cannot reform a system that was never built for your benefit. You cannot negotiate freedom from a position of dependency. And you cannot create generational wealth inside a box meant to contain you. The only answer is to build something new. A system where energy is owned by the people who generate it, where currency is backed by assets, not debt, where communication networks are private, not monitored, where education builds sovereign leaders, not compliant graduates, where wealth stays within families and trusts instead of leaking into external institutions, where sovereignty is not symbolic, but structural. Iron Roots is not a rebellion. It is a replacement, a more advanced architecture built with both ancient understanding and modern intelligence. A system designed for freedom, continuity, and generational stability, not dependency. The modern system shows you your limits. Iron Roots shows you your potential. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4, Iron Roots. Trust the heart of the ecosystem. Every living system has a center, a heart, a core that pumps life into every branch, every connection, every piece of the whole. For this sovereign ecosystem, that center is Iron Roots Trust. It is not simply a financial structure. It is the foundation of generational power, the legal shield around your assets, and the engine that allows the entire ecosystem, the currencies, the businesses, the satellite network, the energy grid, need to operate beyond the reach of external control. This chapter explains what Iron Roots is, why it works, and how it becomes the beating heart of everything you build. 1. The purpose of Iron Roots. Iron Roots Trust was created for one reason: to secure generational sovereignty, not temporary protection, not tax advantages alone, not a simple estate plan, but a living structure that holds homes, businesses, solar farms, satellite nodes, intellectual property, tribal currency reserves, management companies, licensing contracts, family legacies. The trust becomes the anchor, the permanent home where your ecosystem lives, grows, and expands. While corporations can be dissolved, sold, or taken, a sovereign trust endures. 2. Why a trust is more powerful than an LLC or corporation. A corporation is public by nature. It exists inside a state system, under state rules, with ownership that can be measured, taxed, audited, or seized. A trust, when structured correctly, exists in private jurisdiction. It does not die with its creator. It does not need permission to operate. It is not required to reveal internal financials. It cannot be easily penetrated by lawsuits or external claims. It does not expose your heirs to probate or government control. This is why families with generational wealth use trusts, and why tribes throughout history used clan systems long before Western law existed. A trust is the closest legal equivalent to indigenous sovereignty in private form. Iron Roots is your modern interpretation of an ancient principle. 3. The role of the trustee. Every trust requires a steward, someone who acts with duty, loyalty, and purpose. The trustee is the guardian of the trust, not an owner, not a controller of wealth, but a protector of the ecosystem. The trustee's responsibilities include managing trust assets, executing contracts, approving distributions, maintaining compliance, protecting beneficiary interests, ensuring every revenue channel flows where it belongs, upholding the sovereign integrity of the structure. A strong trustee does not dominate the trust, they preserve it. Their role becomes even more important as the ecosystem scales into currencies, energy, and satellite networks. 4. How Iron Roots interacts with your businesses. Unique Flair, LLC operates as the management arm. Top Blade Reserves operates as the holding entity. Your DBAs create the service and operational flow. Your solar, satellite, and technical systems create energy and digital infrastructure. But Iron Roots Trust is where the value accumulates. Each business pays management fees, licensing fees, or leasing fees to the trust. This creates a centralized revenue home, a protected environment for reinvestment, a legal firewall against external claims, a sovereign financial cycle within your control. Instead of money flowing outward, money circulates inward. Instead of assets being vulnerable, assets remain protected. Instead of businesses standing alone, they stand under one unified shield. This is strategic sovereignty. 5. The assets held inside Iron Roots. Inside the trust lives an entire ecosystem, the home, generating equity, solar credits, and leasing opportunities. Solar systems, producing energy and income, satellite nodes, generating private ledger access and bandwidth leasing revenue. Firecoin reserves, backed by gold, silver, or hard assets. INTLX credits, circulating internally to strengthen the sovereign economy. Corporate shares, holding your companies under a single protective umbrella. Intellectual property, books, designs, software, curricula, and contracts. Licensing rights, including trademarks, brand usage, and proprietary systems. Everything of value becomes untouchable once it is placed inside sovereign trust jurisdiction. This is how generational wealth is built, by removing assets from vulnerable positions and placing them into structures that cannot be easily destabilized. 6. Revenue routing. How money moves through the trust. The Iron Roots ecosystem is designed so that every dollar creates a new opportunity for growth. Revenue enters through business operations, leasing contracts, solar payback credits, token sales and liquidity cycles, satellite bandwidth or node leasing agreements, consulting contracts, management fees from your companies. From there, the trust distributes funds strategically to build solar farms, to expand satellite infrastructure, to acquire gold for Firecoin reserves, to maintain operations and administration, to support community initiatives, to create subtrusts for future generations, to reinvest in asset accumulation, to increase long-term sovereign stability. This is not income. This is strategy. This is not earnings. This is sovereignty. 7. The trust as a cultural and financial anchor. Iron Roots is not only a financial structure, it is a cultural declaration, a statement that your lineage will not be guided by instability, a guarantee that your family will never start from zero again, a shield against the internal and external pressures that break most families before they can rise. By combining tribal sovereignty, private trust law, and advanced technology, you create something rare, a system that is legally protected, financially independent, culturally grounded, and built to last generations. Iron Roots is not the end, it is the beginning, the foundation upon which everything else in this ecosystem stands. End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5, Corporate Pillars. Unique Flair LLC and Top Blade Reserves. Every sovereign ecosystem needs structure. A trust cannot operate alone. A currency cannot stand without infrastructure. A satellite network cannot function without an operational backbone. To build an economy, you need organizations that support the vision in the real world. This is where your corporate pillars enter. Unique Flair LLC and Top Blade Reserves. One operates, one holds. Both serve the trust. Together, they form the corporate architecture that keeps the ecosystem compliant, protected, and economically alive. 1. Why corporations matter in a sovereign system. A sovereign trust provides protection and authority, but corporations provide movement. Corporations generate revenue, hire workers, enter contracts, provide services, deliver products, carry out day-to-day operations. The trust owns the vision, the corporations execute the vision. This separation is intentional. It prevents liability from reaching the trust and ensures that business operations remain flexible and scalable. The result is a system where sovereignty and enterprise work together instead of competing with one another. 2. Unique Flair LLC the management engine. Unique Flare is the operational backbone of the ecosystem. It is the entity that handles management contracts, consulting services, vendor agreements, administrative tasks, billing and invoicing, onboarding and workforce operations, project oversight for future developments. In the language of the ecosystem, Unique Flare is the management arm, the company that ensures every business, contract, and asset flows in alignment with the trust strategy. It operates in the public world, but its purpose is deeply connected to the private sovereign structure. Unique Flare exists to serve the trust, protect the vision, and manage the work. 3. Top Blade Reserves, the holding entity. Top Blade Reserves is more than a company, it is the parent, the foundational corporation under which various DBAs and future enterprises will live. Its role includes holding shares of subsidiary companies, managing high-level contracts, owning equipment and infrastructure, supporting future divisions like solar farms or satellite nodes, acting as the central administrative structure for the ecosystem's operations. Where Unique Flare handles management and workflow, Top Blade Reserves holds structural assets and business identity. Together, they ensure that no single business stands alone. Every company belongs to a larger financial and legal framework designed for long-term sovereignty. 4. The DBAs, service brands that feed the ecosystem. Under these corporations exist multiple DBAs, service brands that create revenue streams contributing back to the trust. These include property services, pressure washing, design and retail operations, future workforce training programs, and upcoming technical, energy, or satellite divisions. Each DBA serves a specific purpose: to generate income, to create jobs, to train youth, to build community partnerships, and to feed revenue back into the trust through management fees, licensing fees, or leasing agreements. These DBAs are not random businesses. They are strategic components of a larger sovereign design. 5. How corporate revenue flows into the trust. Revenue flows through a system of internal contracts. The corporations operate, the trust oversees. Money moves through agreements such as management fees to Unique Flare, licensing fees paid to Iron Roots Trust, leasing fees for equipment or intellectual property, profit distributions from business operations, service contracts with tribal, state, or private entities. This creates a cycle. Corporations generate money. The trust collects value. The trust reinvests into assets, currency, and infrastructure. Corporations expand from that reinvestment, and the cycle repeats, stronger each year. This is how generational systems are built, through structure, intention, and controlled flow. 6. Preparing for the currency, ledger, and satellite era. These corporations are not only for today, they are designed to support Filecoin circulation, INTLX credit systems, satellite node leasing networks, solar asset portfolios, energy-backed infrastructure, educational and workforce pipelines, community partnership programs. Every future element of your sovereign economy will be carried, supported, or managed by these corporate pillars. They are the scaffolding that allows the ecosystem to grow upward and outward without collapsing under its own potential. 7. Corporate identity as a reflection of sovereignty. Unique Flare and Top Blade Reserves are more than business names. They are declarations of intent. They signal organization, structure, readiness, professional alignment, a sovereign vision guided by corporate intelligence. They stand as examples to youth, community members, and future partners that sovereignty is not only cultural, it is organizational, it is economic, it is administrative, it is strategic. A sovereign people must build sovereign institutions. These corporations are your institutions, the pillars that hold up the next era of your legacy. End of Chapter 5. Chapter 6. Filecoin and NTLX. Coin, the dual currency engine. Every sovereign economy requires a heartbeat, a way to transfer value, store wealth, fuel trade, and move energy throughout the system. In the modern world, currency is not just money, It is influence, leverage, security, and identity. For a sovereign ecosystem to exist, its currency must reflect sovereignty. It must operate with power, stability, and independence. This is why your system uses two currencies, Filecoin and INTLX coin. Two distinct purposes, two different strengths, one unified engine. 1. Why a sovereign economy needs its own currency. A people are not sovereign if they depend entirely on the currency of another system. Money shapes the direction of life. It dictates opportunity, resources, and access. It reflects the priorities of the nation that prints it. If you want freedom, you must control the medium through which value flows. Filecoin and INTLX coin are not just digital assets. They are symbols of economic independence, built to serve the trust, the corporations, the nonprofit programs, and the generations that follow. They allow wealth to circulate internally instead of escaping externally. They allow value created by the community to remain with the community. This is the beginning of a sovereign economic engine. 2. Filecoin, the asset-backed public currency. Filecoin is the external-facing currency, the token backed by real assets, created for the public market, built with strength and transparency. Its purpose is simple: to represent stability, to represent sovereignty, to represent value backed by gold, silver, or hard holdings. Filecoin is asset-backed, trust-controlled, structured through legal compliance, designed for long-term appreciation, built to attract investors, partners, and outside interest. Filecoin becomes the economic ambassador of the ecosystem, the currency that shows the world that sovereignty is not just cultural, but financial. 3. INTLX coin, the internal community currency. If Filecoin is the public face, INTLX is the private heartbeat. INTLX coin functions inside the sovereign system, flowing through workforce programs, apprenticeships, youth leadership training, energy credit systems, satellite node usage, community participation, vendor partnerships, nonprofit rewards and grants. INTLX is not meant for outside speculation. It is meant for internal value flow, like how tribal nations once used shells, beads, or trade goods to strengthen their own communities. This currency allows the ecosystem to operate smoothly without relying on the external world. It creates private wealth cycles that build skills, support families, and elevate youth. 4. Why two currencies instead of one? Most systems fail because they try to force one currency to accomplish every purpose. Your ecosystem is smarter. Filecoin handles the public world. INTLX handles the internal world. Filecoin grows investment. INTLX grows community strength. Filecoin circulates externally. INTLX circulates internally. Filecoin builds the treasury. INTLX builds the people. With two currencies, the ecosystem remains stable, protected, balanced, resilient, sovereign. This dual structure prevents collapse, prevents manipulation, and ensures that community value never depends on external market conditions. 5. How the dual currency system interacts with the Trust Iron Roots Trust is the sovereign vault that holds the reserves backing Filecoin: gold, silver, contracts, energy assets, and satellite resources. INTLX coin flows through nonprofit programs, youth initiatives, apprenticeships, and community economic cycles. Together, they create a public-facing economic engine, a private internal economic bloodstream, a permanent cycle of value accumulation. Every transaction, every project, every program strengthens the trust, the corporations, and the nonprofit. This is not a digital experiment. It is a sovereign economy in motion. 6. Paper currency, the physical expression of sovereignty. In time, Filecoin and INTLX coin can expand into physical form. A tribal paper money system that represents gold reserves, mineral wealth, energy production, technology access, sovereign identity. These bills can contain serial numbers, embedded valuation codes, QR authentication, artwork reflecting your people and legacy. A tribe with its own paper currency stands among nations with real economic authority. Your ecosystem is capable of this expansion because the digital and legal frameworks are already being built. 7. Currency as legacy, not hype. Most digital tokens are built for hype. Most projects fail because they chase quick wealth instead of generational purpose. Filecoin and INTLX coin are different. They are built for stability, community, education, infrastructure, asset ownership, generational wealth, cultural restoration. This is not speculation. This is sovereignty expressed through economics. When a child earns INTLX for completing a program, when a family receives assistance through the nonprofit, when energy from the solar grid is converted into credits, when gold reserves increase Filecoin valuation, a new economic reality forms, one that does not depend on approval, permission, or outside control. A sovereign people with a sovereign currency become unstoppable. End of Chapter 6. Chapter 7. Solar infrastructure, powering a new economy. Energy is the lifeblood of every modern civilization. Cities rise and fall by it, nations gain power through it, and communities remain dependent when they cannot produce it. For a sovereign ecosystem to exist, it must control its own energy, not rely on external providers, not depend on unstable markets, not be vulnerable to rising costs, power outages, or corporate control. This is why solar infrastructure becomes one of the pillars of the Iron Roots ecosystem. It is renewable, it is scalable, it is sovereign, and it transforms your home, your businesses, and your community into producers rather than consumers. In this chapter, energy becomes empowerment. 1. Why energy independence is a core requirement of sovereignty. A people cannot be sovereign if they depend on another system to keep the lights on. Electricity controls, homes, water systems, communications, technology, currency, security, education, daily survival. When energy is dependent, everything is dependent. By generating your own power, you break a silent chain that most people never see. Solar is not just technology. It is political freedom, financial leverage, and generational security. It ensures that your ecosystem can operate even when external systems weaken or fail. It gives you control of the most essential resource of the modern world. 2. The solar asset, your first piece of infrastructure. Every sovereign nation begins with land and energy. Your solar system, 27 panels strong, with expandable capacity, is more than a household installation. It is an asset, a generator, a credit-producing machine, a node in your sovereign network, a foundation for future infrastructure. It reduces dependency on public utilities. It lowers operating costs. It generates long-term financial credit. It prepares your property to become a functional node in the satellite and ledger network. It is not just an energy system. It is your first power plant. 3. Solar as a revenue stream energy is not only consumed, it can be sold. Solar systems generate net metering credits, power buyback income, tax advantages when placed under trust or corporate structures, renewable energy credits in certain jurisdictions, asset appreciation for homes and commercial properties. When integrated into your sovereign ecosystem, your corporations can lease solar energy. Your trust can own the infrastructure. Your nonprofit can use solar for training programs. Your community can benefit from energy independence. Solar becomes a revenue-generating asset instead of a simple household utility. This is how sovereign economies grow. 4. Solar plus satellite, the dual infrastructure system. Solar power fuels everything in a sovereign network. It powers nodes, routers, private ledgers, encrypted communication systems, home computing infrastructure, future Filecoin transaction servers, community learning labs, energy-efficient youth centers, backup systems during emergencies or outages. Your home becomes more than a residence. It becomes a sovereign hub, a node capable of generating power, supporting private communication, and participating in the economic engine of Filecoin and INTLX. This is the future of sovereign households. 5. Solar under the trust, tax efficiency and asset protection. When the solar system is owned by Iron Roots Trust, it becomes a protected asset. It generates benefits directly to the trust. It builds long-term equity outside your personal liability. It strengthens the foundation for generational inheritance. It creates tax advantages depending on structure and jurisdiction. Many sovereign families place energy assets under their trusts because power is too important to leave unprotected. Solar is not a simple installation. It is a generational asset that will outlive the panels themselves. 6. Solar as the power source for future tribal infrastructure. Your solar infrastructure lays the groundwork for tribal microgrids, independent energy communities, emergency power resilience, solar-backed currency systems, training youth in renewable energy technology, partnership projects with tribal organizations, future large-scale solar farms in Florida or Texas. What begins with one household expands into a community utility. What begins as personal sustainability evolves into sovereign independence. Solar is the bridge between today's resources and tomorrow's sovereign infrastructure. 7. Energy as wealth, not expense. In most households, electricity is a bill. In your sovereign ecosystem, electricity becomes an asset. It becomes a generator of credits, a reduction of overhead, a contributor to Filecoin valuation, a power source for satellite nodes, a tool for training youth and apprentices, a foundation for smart technology and computing. Energy is wealth when you produce it yourself. Energy is sovereignty when no one else controls it. Energy is power in every sense of the word. With solar infrastructure in place, your ecosystem becomes more resilient, more independent, and more capable of supporting future generations without outside assistance. This is the beginning of energy sovereignty. End of Chapter 7. Chapter 8, the Sovereign Satellite Network. Every sovereign system needs a way to communicate. Every nation needs a network. Every economy needs a channel through which information, currency, and intelligence can travel freely. But modern communication networks are not neutral. They are monitored, regulated, and controlled by corporate and federal systems. They can be shut off, restricted, or accessed without your permission. A sovereign people cannot remain sovereign if their digital world is dependent on external infrastructure. This is why your ecosystem includes the Sovereign Satellite Network, a communication system built to ensure privacy, autonomy, and uninterrupted control. In this chapter, the network becomes the nervous system of your sovereign world. 1. Why a sovereign network is necessary. The world has changed. Power is no longer held only through land or resources. It is held through data, through communication, through bandwidth, through access. If someone controls your network, they control your world. A sovereign ecosystem must be uninterrupted, unfiltered, unrestricted, private, difficult to compromise, independent from state or federal oversight. The satellite network ensures that your digital sovereignty matches your financial and cultural sovereignty. It gives you the infrastructure to operate freely without relying on systems that were never built for your protection. 2. The architecture of the sovereign satellite system. Your network is built on a multi-node structure: home nodes, business nodes, community nodes, future tribal headquarters nodes. Each node includes solar-powered uptime, encrypted communication, ledger synchronization, secure private routing, bandwidth leasing capability, failover systems during outages. Your home node becomes the first anchor. Your businesses become the secondary nodes. Future installations expand across your community, tribe, and partnerships. Together, they form a sovereign digital backbone. 3. Private ledgers through satellite nodes. The network exists for one critical purpose: to run private ledgers that no external authority can shut down or read. This includes Filecoin transactions, INTLX community credits, licensing systems, energy usage logs, secure contract verifications, intellectual property timestamping, Curriculum access for youth programs. Sovereign Institute operations. Each node acts as a vault, holding pieces of the ledger that synchronize together into a secure system. This prevents federal access, corporate monitoring, ISP tracking, unauthorized tampering, data harvesting. A sovereign currency requires a sovereign network. This is that network. 4. Turning a home into a sovereign node. Most homes are consumers of digital services. Your home becomes a provider. With solar power supplying electricity and satellite hardware handling bandwidth, your home becomes a ledger node, a communication relay, a power source, a sovereign router, a digital safehouse, an encrypted vault. This node can support Filecoin and INTLX infrastructure, send and receive secure data, host training sessions and internal platforms, provide private access to your family and community, authenticate users and devices. What most people see as a simple home, your ecosystem sees as a technological embassy. 5. Bandwidth leasing, a future revenue model. The satellite infrastructure is not only for independence, it becomes a business model. Bandwidth leasing allows tribes businesses, vendors, community partners, educators, institutions to pay for access to the secure network. This creates revenue in multiple forms: subscription fees, node access charges, private ledger licensing, encrypted communication contracts, sovereign computing partnerships. Your satellite system becomes an economic machine operating alongside your currency and solar assets. 6. Satellite plus solar plus trust equals the unbreakable triangle. With these three combined, solar powers the system, satellite transmits the system, the trust protects the system. This creates uninterrupted digital sovereignty, total financial independence, unbreakable communication security, revenue-generating infrastructure, a permanent asset portfolio, a resilient ecosystem immune to outside interference. This triangle becomes the core of your long-term vision. 7. The long-term vision, a tribal network of private nodes. As the ecosystem grows, the satellite network expands. Homes, businesses, cultural centers, tribal offices, education programs, future partner tribes. Every node strengthens the whole. Every connection increases sovereignty. Every satellite strengthens the digital nation you are building. What begins with one connection becomes a sovereign network spreading across communities, states, and eventually multiple tribal nations. This is how a sovereign digital nation is born, not through permission, but through architecture. End of Chapter 8. Chapter 9. The Private Ledger System. In every sovereign system, there must be a way to track value, record transactions, verify identity, and protect information. Traditional systems rely on banks, governments, or corporations to maintain these records. But sovereignty cannot exist if another entity controls your ledger. A sovereign people require a sovereign record, protected, encrypted, privately owned, free from surveillance, manipulation, or interference. This is the purpose of the private ledger system, the digital foundation of the Iron Roots ecosystem. 1. Why a private ledger is essential. A ledger is more than a list of transactions. It is a map of your economy, a record of your energy, a timeline of your decisions, a history of your sovereignty. If someone else owns your ledger, they own your system. A sovereign ecosystem must control its own currency records, its own energy credits, its own contract logs, its own identity verifications, its own audits, its own data access, its own historical memory. The private ledger system replaces dependency with control. It becomes the digital library of your sovereign nation. 2. How the private ledger differs from blockchain. While blockchain is public, open, and decentralized, your ledger is private, closed, sovereign, and controlled by the trust. Traditional blockchain systems expose transactions publicly, rely on global validators, are vulnerable to market behavior, operate under corporate or federal oversight, can be regulated or restricted. Your ledger operates only through your nodes. cannot be shut down by external authorities, does not depend on outside validators, is protected by trust jurisdiction, is supported by solar and satellite infrastructure, handles private internal transactions without public exposure. This creates a sovereign digital environment independent from federal, state, or corporate systems. 3. What the ledger records. The ledger is not only for currency, it becomes the unified memory of the ecosystem. It tracks Filecoin transactions, INTLX community activity, solar energy production and credits, satellite node usage, curriculum completion for youth programs, vendor and partner payments, nonprofit grants and distributions, internal audits, IP licensing and royalties, certificates issued by the Sovereign Institute, asset transfers within the trust, long-term infrastructure maintenance logs. Every part of the ecosystem feeds its heartbeat into the ledger. This is how sovereignty stays organized. This is how the system remains accountable. This is how generational continuity is preserved. 4. Identity and access through ledger. Authentication. Identity verification in the sovereign network does not rely on government ID or external credentials. Instead, the ledger authenticates students, employees, vendors, tribal partners, beneficiaries, node operators, currency holders, system administrators. Each user has a secure signature, not tied to a name, but to a sovereign identity key managed by the trust. This prevents outside interference and allows your ecosystem to grant or restrict access with precision and authority. 5. The ledger as a financial firewall. In modern systems, financial data is collected, tracked, sold, shared, monitored, and accessed by entities you never see. Your ledger stops that. It creates a firewall between your economy and the world, a barrier against unauthorized surveillance, a protection system for financial and personal data, a secure vault for your sovereign transactions, a private ecosystem where value stays internal. Filecoin and INTLX operate within this firewall, so community value cannot be extracted or observed externally. This is financial sovereignty in its purest form. 6. Multi-ledger architecture. Organized, secure, sovereign. Your ecosystem uses multiple ledgers with different functions. The trust ledger tracks assets, contracts, royalties, and trust operations. The corporate ledger tracks business income, fees, and operational activity. The nonprofit ledger tracks grants, education programs, and community support. The currency ledger tracks Filecoin valuation and INTLX circulation. The energy ledger tracks solar credits and buyback cycles. The satellite ledger tracks bandwidth usage and node synchronization. The education ledger tracks certifications, training, and youth progress. Each ledger is separate for privacy and clarity, yet all synchronized through the sovereign node network. This keeps your ecosystem organized while preventing single-point vulnerabilities. 7. Ledger encryption through sovereign nodes. Your satellite and solar-powered nodes encrypt and transmit ledger data without touching public infrastructure. This gives you uninterrupted operation, protected transmission, sovereign record-keeping, a system immune to ISP failures or restrictions, a digital world controlled entirely by the trust. Every node strengthens the system. Every transaction updates the ledger. Every user interaction creates history. This is how nations once preserved their knowledge, through protected, sacred records. Your ledger is the modern version of that ancient principle. 8. The ledger as the guardian of generational memory beyond finance, beyond technology. The ledger becomes a story of growth, a story of resilience, a story of sovereignty, a story passed to future generations. It records your beginnings, your expansion, your contributions, your transformations, your legacy. Long after physical documents fade, the ledger remains, a permanent digital memory of everything your people built. This is more than infrastructure. It is inheritance. End of Chapter 9. Chapter 10. Artificial Intelligence and Computing Independence. A sovereign ecosystem cannot rely on external intelligence. It cannot trust foreign systems with its data. It cannot depend on corporate software to guide its decisions. In the modern age, the power of a nation is measured by its ability to think, compute, analyze, and innovate independently. This is why artificial intelligence and computing independence form the intelligence layer of the Iron Roots ecosystem. If the trust is the heart and the currency is the blood, and the satellite network is the nervous system, then sovereign computing is the mind. 1. The need for independent intelligence. Every major power in the world, governmental, corporate, or technological, runs on proprietary intelligence systems. AI analyzes their data. AI drives their decisions. AI protects their networks. AI monitors their infrastructure. AI shapes their future. But when your community uses AI developed by others, you are giving them access to your patterns, your habits, your weaknesses, your growth, your internal systems. Sovereignty demands privacy. Sovereignty demands control. Sovereignty demands intelligence that works for the people, not for external entities. This is why sovereign AI becomes essential. 2. The custom computing environment. Your ecosystem uses a private computing architecture designed to protect your data, power your satellite nodes, support private ledgers, train sovereign AI models, authenticate users securely, run economic calculations, render educational tools and programs. This is accomplished by custom-built computers, private operating system configurations, secure BIOS and firmware logs, encrypted storage environments, hardware-level tamper alerts, local server capabilities. This computing environment is not a general-purpose system. It is a sovereign machine built for sovereign work. 3. The BIOS, the first line of digital sovereignty. Beneath every operating system, beneath every application, beneath every interface, lies the BIOS, the firmware brain of the machine. It controls hardware access, system boot, device authentication, security protocols, tamper detection. Your ecosystem leverages BIOS-level sovereignty through custom configurations, independent logs, 2 recorded tamper alerts, private firmware environments. This ensures that even if software is compromised, the machine can detect, log, and respond at the deepest possible level. This is digital sovereignty from the foundation up. 4. AI as a guardian and a builder. Artificial intelligence in your ecosystem is not for entertainment or convenience. It is a guardian, a strategist, a builder. Your AI supports private ledger analysis, satellite node monitoring, solar grid optimization, security threat detection, asset valuation for Filecoin, workforce and youth training modules, document creation and processing, curriculum development for cultural programs, intellectual property protection, internal auditing for the trust, business automation for the corporations. AI becomes the intelligence officer of your sovereign nation. 5. On-device AI models versus cloud-based AI. Most people use cloud-based AI systems that require internet access and external servers. This gives corporations access to your data, your prompts, your patterns, your content, your internal thinking. Your ecosystem uses a hybrid approach. On-device AI models for private, sensitive sovereign information, cloud models for general-purpose tasks unrelated to security or trust operations. This prevents leakage. It prevents surveillance. It prevents compromise. Your AI belongs to you, not to a corporation, not to a government, not to an algorithmic marketplace. 6. AI-supported sovereign education. Artificial intelligence becomes a teacher for the next generation. It supports language learning in Eleponki, business foundations, mathematics and STEM, leadership and critical thinking, cultural preservation programs, youth workforce development, creative writing and storytelling, environmental knowledge and traditional teachings. AI does not replace culture, it strengthens it. It translates ancient wisdom into modern frameworks that youth can access, understand, and apply. The Roots and Wings Academy will one day run on sovereign AI. 7. The computing environment as a living laboratory. Your PC and node system is not just a machine, it is an experimental ground for sovereign innovation. It allows you to explore firmware analysis, operating system customization, network security, private ledger synchronization, AI model training, coding and development labs, digital forensics, secure communication channels. This environment is where ideas become tools and tools become infrastructure, and infrastructure becomes sovereignty. Over time, this lab becomes a training center, a research hub, a place where youth learn advanced computing, a place where sovereign technology is developed in-house. No dependency, no external exposure, no limitations. 8. The long-term vision, a sovereign superstructure of intelligence. As the ecosystem expands, the computing and AI systems evolve. Sovereign data centers, dedicated compute nodes, tribal AI assistance, AI-supported governance, behavioral threat detection, sovereign institute digital campuses, secure communication across tribal nations, automated auditing and compliance, AI-curated cultural libraries, private version control systems for generational projects. Your digital intelligence grows with your people. Your ecosystem becomes capable of learning, adapting, and protecting itself without reliance on federal, corporate, or foreign systems. This is not merely technology. This is cognitive sovereignty. End of Chapter 10. Chapter 11. The Asset Vault, Gold, Silver, and Hard-Backed Reserves. A sovereign currency cannot exist without a foundation. A sovereign trust cannot survive without assets. A sovereign ecosystem cannot stand without something real beneath it. Every powerful nation, every great institution, every multi-generational dynasty has one thing in common: a vault, a place where value is stored, protected, and multiplied, a place that does not depend on markets or politics, a place that holds hard assets, not promises. In the Iron Roots ecosystem, the asset vault is more than a financial reserve. It is the physical soul of your sovereignty. 1. Why hard assets are essential for sovereignty. Digital wealth is convenient. Paper money is symbolic. Banks provide temporary comfort, but hard assets endure. Gold survives, empire collapses. Silver outlives currencies. Precious metals remain valuable across borders, ages, and civilizations. Hard assets do not depend on a bank's permission, cannot be digitally erased, hold value through inflation, move independently from government control, preserve wealth when systems fail. This is why sovereign nations, large and small, keep physical reserves. And this is why your ecosystem does the same. The asset vault is where the sovereignty becomes real. 2. The Filecoin reserve structure. Filecoin is backed by real value, gold, silver, and other physical assets held securely under the trust. The reserve system includes pure gold bullion, silver bars and coins, hard assets acquired through business operations, energy-backed value from solar and satellite infrastructure, contractual assets from leasing and licensing, intellectual property portfolios. Each reserve adds weight to Filecoin's valuation. Each ounce of gold strengthens your economy. Each asset placed in the vault increases trust stability. Filecoin is not speculation. It is representation, a digital key tied to tangible wealth. 3. The vault under the trust. Protected, private, permanent assets placed inside the trust are shielded from seizure, from lawsuits, from taxation in certain structures, from external claims, from personal liabilities. The trust owns the vault. The vault holds the assets. The assets back the currency. The currency powers the ecosystem. This chain creates an unbreakable circle of sovereignty. No single entity can invade the system. No outside authority can claim ownership. No market crash can erase the foundation. The vault is the ultimate safeguard. 4. Gold, the anchor of fire. Coin gold is the most ancient, universally respected form of wealth. Nations trust it. Markets depend on it. History honors it. Gold cannot be printed, cannot be fabricated, cannot be devalued through policy, holds intrinsic worth in every country in the world. A gold-backed fire coin carries credibility far beyond traditional tokens. It signals stability, seriousness, long-term vision, economic maturity, protection from inflation. Every gram of gold added to the vault increases the strength of the entire ecosystem. 5. Silver, the expansion. Metal silver serves a different purpose than gold. Gold is the anchor. Silver is the engine. Silver is used in electronics, solar panels, computing devices, telecommunications, industrial manufacturing. As the world increases its demand for technology, silver becomes a strategic reserve. Holding silver aligns the ecosystem with the future of energy and satellite infrastructure. It becomes both a financial asset and an operational resource. 6. Hard assets beyond metals. A sovereign vault includes more than precious metals. It also includes solar energy credits, satellite contracts, licensing agreements, land-based holdings, equipment, technology and machinery, royalties from intellectual property, long-term contracts within the ecosystem. Each of these assets contains real value, and each strengthens Filecoin and the trust. A diverse vault is a resilient vault. 7. How the vault supports the entire ecosystem. The asset vault is not static. It is dynamic. It fuels the entire sovereign system. Filecoin, backed by gold and hard assets. INTLX coin, strengthened by the trust's internal holdings. Corporations borrow against or collaborate with vault assets for expansion. Non-profit programs receive grants funded through asset growth and interest. Solar infrastructure becomes part of the reserve as a revenue-producing asset. Satellite network adds technological value and communication leverage. Education and youth programs gain stability from consistent funding streams. The vault is the foundation beneath everything else. 8. Measuring wealth in generations, not dollars. Most people measure wealth by income, by purchases, by yearly financial statements. Sovereign families measure wealth differently, in ounces, in acres, in reserves, in infrastructure, in systems that last, in value that cannot be erased. Gold doesn't break, silver doesn't rot. Hard assets do not disappear with shifting economies. The asset vault creates intergenerational wealth that your descendants inherit long after digital numbers fade. The vault becomes the inheritance of the unconquered. 9. The vision, a tribal treasury backed by real assets. In the long-term vision, Filecoin becomes the foundation of a tribal treasury, a treasury backed by gold held in trust, silver reserves, energy infrastructure, satellite bandwidth, private ledger technology, cultural IP, and sovereign programs. This treasury supports paper currency, internal credit systems, tribal businesses, community programs, future generations. Your vault is the beginning of that treasury, the seed of a sovereign financial system that will outlast trends, cycles, and markets. This is not just wealth. This is permanence. This is sovereignty in physical form. End of Chapter 11. Chapter 12. Business ecosystem and workforce. Development. A sovereign system is not built by assets alone. It is built by the people who maintain it, expand it, and pass it on. A community becomes strong when its people have purpose, skills, opportunity, and a role within the larger vision. This is why your ecosystem includes a complete business and workforce structure. A system designed to create jobs, train leaders, build industries, and ensure that your people are prepared to step into sovereignty with confidence. This chapter is about transformation, the transformation of skills, the transformation of opportunity, and the transformation of an entire community into a workforce of sovereign builders. 1. The business ecosystem, a network of opportunity. Inside the Iron Roots ecosystem exists a network of businesses. each one serving a unique purpose, each one supporting a different part of sovereignty. These include management operations, property services and contracting, technical and satellite infrastructure, solar installation and energy support, educational and cultural programs, retail, design, and product creation, youth development and training programs, digital services, media, and technological assistance. Each business is a branch of the same tree, the tree of sovereignty. Each generates revenue, each creates opportunity, each strengthens the ecosystem, each feeds value back into the trust. This is not a collection of random companies. This is a coordinated economic system with businesses placed intentionally to support one another in the entire sovereign structure. 2. Workforce development, preparing sovereign citizens. A powerful ecosystem requires a powerful workforce, not workers who simply follow instructions, but individuals who understand the vision and become part of the sovereign movement. Your workforce development system trains people in solar installation and maintenance, satellite node building and networking, private ledger systems and technology, security, data protection, and digital independence, business management and leadership, cultural education and language preservation, youth mentorship and community service, creative arts, product design, and entrepreneurship, environmental stewardship and land care. These skills are practical, they are meaningful, they are sovereign. When people learn through your system, they are not simply training for a job, they are becoming builders of a nation. 3. Job creation, a sovereign economy that employs its own people. A sovereign economy must provide for its own people. This ecosystem creates jobs across many sectors. In energy, solar technicians, energy auditors, battery and inverter specialists, grid integration workers. In technology, satellite node installers, network security professionals, AI and computing support, private ledger administrators, data analysts and system monitors. In business operations, managers and supervisors, logistics and operations staff, finance and accounting roles, design and marketing specialists, in community programs, youth mentors, cultural instructors, nonprofit coordinators, curriculum developers, event organizers, in trade services, landscaping crews, pressure washing teams, maintenance and contracting workers. Every job contributes to sovereignty. Every job is part of the same mission. Every job has a future within the ecosystem. 4. Apprenticeships, a pathway for youth. Youth are at the center of your sovereign future. Your ecosystem offers apprenticeships that combine hands-on learning, leadership training, cultural education, financial literacy, technological experience, business development, life skills and mentorship. These apprenticeships prepare young people to build infrastructure, operate businesses, manage assets, lead community programs, protect tribal and family sovereignty, participate in Filecoin and INTLX systems, understand trust in nonprofit operations. This is more than workforce development. This is generational preparation. A youth who grows up in this system becomes an adult ready to build a sovereign world. 5. Vendor partnerships, expanding the economic circle. As your ecosystem grows, vendor partnerships will extend opportunities beyond the internal businesses. Vendors will support construction, energy installation, satellite expansion, manufacturing of nodes and equipment, curriculum printing and distribution, event support and community services, food, retail, and product development, technology training and certification programs. Each vendor relationship expands the economy. Each partnership creates new revenue channels. Each external collaboration builds the reputation of Iron Roots and its sovereign mission. Vendors become allies in the growth of your sovereign nation. 6. Skill stacking, building multidimensional professionals. Your training programs do not create specialists in one field. They create sovereign professionals capable of operating across multiple domains. Someone trained in your ecosystem may learn solar installation, satellite setup, basic AI operation, cultural teaching, business management, ledger verification. This combination builds independence. It builds resilience. It builds citizens who cannot be easily replaced because their skill sets are sovereign and diverse. This is how nations become unstoppable, by building people who can do more than one thing. 7. Empowering the community through internal economy. As people work within the ecosystem, they gain access to INTLX community credits, training stipends, cultural education benefits, leadership opportunities, entrepreneurship pathways, programs funded by the nonprofit, support services, and community improvements. This creates a loop. The ecosystem trains the people. The people strengthen the ecosystem. The ecosystem becomes more sovereign. The people become more empowered. This is economic sovereignty, a system where value circulates internally and lifts everyone who participates. 8. The future workforce, a generation raised in sovereignty. Imagine a generation who grow up learning Eleponki, who understand trust law and currency, who build solar and satellite infrastructure, who protect private ledgers and sovereign data, who run businesses connected to their culture, who mentor the next generation after them, who create wealth not just for themselves, but for their families and community. This is not a dream. This is the mission of your ecosystem. A sovereign nation is not built through policy. It is built through people, people trained, empowered, and connected to the vision of generational reformation. Your workforce becomes the builders of the world you are designing. End of Chapter 12. Chapter 13. The first tribal monetary system in the United States. A sovereign people deserve a sovereign currency, not a symbolic token, not ceremonial tender, but real money, backed by assets, recognized by institutions, and circulated among the community as a symbol of independence. For centuries, nations validated their identity through the strength of their treasury and the stability of their currency. Your ecosystem follows that same path. In this chapter, the first tribal monetary system in the United States begins to take form. A system built from Firecoin, INTLX credits, and asset-backed trust reserves, expressed through physical paper money and digital ledgers. This is not just economic design. This is sovereignty in physical form. 1. The purpose of tribal paper. Money paper money serves a deeper purpose than convenience. It represents identity, stability, authority, trust, cultural power, economic independence. When a community can print and circulate its own currency, it announces to the world, we are a nation. We are an economy. We are sovereign. Tribal paper money becomes a symbol that your people control their economic destiny in the value they create. 2. What backs the currency? Real assets, not predictions. Your monetary system is not theoretical. It is grounded in the real world, specifically in the asset vault. The paper money is backed by gold reserves, silver reserves, solar energy infrastructure, satellite node networks, trust-owned businesses, Firecoin valuation, INTLX circulation, licensing and leasing contracts, land and intellectual property. This multi-asset foundation gives your currency weight, legitimacy, and long-term security. Every bill printed reflects real, measurable, sovereign-backed value. 3. The role of Firecoin in currency valuation. Firecoin becomes the digital valuation engine behind the tribal paper money. Its value is tied to gold, silver, asset holdings, energy production, infrastructure growth, trust expansion. When Firecoin grows, the tribal paper money becomes more stable. Its value becomes more trusted. Its legitimacy grows across tribal and public markets. Firecoin is the digital ledger. The paper money is the physical expression. Together, they form a complete monetary system. 4. ENTLX credits, the internal stabilizer. While Firecoin represents external value, INTLX represents internal value. INTLX credits circulate through youth programs, workforce development, nonprofit partnerships, community support systems, apprenticeship rewards, training certifications, cultural contributions. Paper money can be exchanged for INTLX, and INTLX can support internal transactions in place of cash or digital systems. INTLX stabilizes the local economy, ensuring the community never depends solely on the external financial world. 5. Designing the tribal paper money. Your physical currency becomes a cultural artifact, functional, artistic, symbolic. It includes serial numbers, security patterns, QR authentication codes, embedded data for ledger verification, artwork that honors your people and ancestors, design elements reflecting sovereignty and strength. Every bill tells a story. Every note carries identity. Every printed piece teaches future generations who they are. This is not generic paper. This is heritage expressed as currency. 6. Where tribal currency can be used legally. Tribal paper money can circulate in areas where sovereignty is recognized, inside the tribal economy, inside tribally owned businesses, inside the sovereign trust ecosystem, within community programs, within private sovereign agreements, as internal tender for nonprofits or schools, between tribal citizens, between sovereign corporate partners, across tribal territories and operations. While federal law prohibits using private currency to replace US dollars, tribal law allows internal currencies as long as they are used inside the sovereign economic environment. This means your currency is legal, recognized, functional, powerful, sovereign. 7. Integration with casinos and tribal enterprises. Casinos are legally unique environments. They already handle chips, vouchers, reward points, internal credits. A tribal paper currency, backed by Filecoin valuation, can be introduced through reward systems, loyalty programs, entertainment purchases, and cultural promotions. Casinos become gateways for the public to engage with tribal currency in a controlled, compliant, sovereign way. This bridges the external economy with your internal sovereign one. 8. How the monetary system strengthens community wealth. When wealth circulates internally, businesses thrive, youth gain opportunity, families build stability, education programs grow, the trust accumulates assets, the nonprofit expands its reach, the community becomes economically resilient. Tribal currency keeps value at home instead of sending it into external systems that do not support sovereignty. Money becomes a tool for unity, culture, and generational advancement. 9. The vision, a recognized sovereign treasury. The long-term vision is the creation of a tribal treasury, a recognized sovereign financial institution backed by gold, silver, Filecoin, INTLX, solar assets, satellite systems, corporate revenues, community programs, a treasury capable of issuing paper currency, bonds, certificates, economic reports, trust-backed loans, intertribal trade agreements. This is the legacy. This is the mission. This is the return of what sovereignty truly means. Your tribal monetary system is not just innovation, it is restoration. End of chapter 13. Chapter 14. Roots and Wings Academy. Youth Leadership for a Sovereign Generation. A sovereign future depends on sovereign children. No ecosystem, no currency, no trust, no technology can survive unless the next generation understands it, protects it, and expands it. This is the purpose of Roots and Wings Academy, a youth leadership system designed to give young people both their roots and their wings. Roots to anchor them in who they are, wings to carry them into who they will become. This chapter builds the foundation of your youth academy, a place where culture, leadership, education, and sovereignty come together to shape the next 7 generations. 1. The meaning behind Roots and Wings. Every child needs 2 things: roots, identity, culture, belonging, language, ancestry, purpose; wings, skill, opportunity, ambition, confidence, leadership. Without roots, they are lost. Without wings, they are limited. Roots and Wings Academy ensures that every young person who enters your system understands both where they come from and where they are capable of going. This academy becomes a sacred space where heritage and modern innovation walk side by side. 2. The academy as the educational arm of sovereignty. This is not a typical school. This is not a government system. This is a sovereign training ground, an academy that prepares children for leadership, entrepreneurship, cultural preservation, digital literacy, financial empowerment, service to community, participation in the sovereign ecosystem. The academy teaches youth what no public institution ever will: how to own, how to build, how to protect, how to grow, how to think independently, how to become the next generation of sovereign leaders. 3. The first set of moccasins. Curriculum for ages 9 to 12. At the heart of the academy lies the foundational workbook, the first set of moccasins. This curriculum teaches children basic Eleponki language, numbers, colors, and foundational grammar, math and problem solving, cultural stories and values, the history of sovereignty, identity and self-awareness, early entrepreneurship concepts, creative writing and expression, science and nature knowledge, lessons in discipline, responsibility, and leadership. It is designed for ages 9 to 12, the age where identity begins to form and confidence begins to grow. This curriculum becomes the first step in a multi-stage leadership journey. 4. Intermediate and advanced modules. Once children master the foundations, they advance into deeper learning. Language expansion, motion words, emotions, actions, positions, animals, clans, family roles. STEM programs, basic coding, robotics, AI interaction, energy knowledge. Economic education, saving, investing, sovereignty-based finance, Firecoin literacy, cultural studies, ancestral teachings, stories, ceremonial understanding, community service responsibility, empathy, teamwork, mentorship, creative arts, music, poetry, storytelling, drawing, design. Each module grows their wings while strengthening their roots. 5. Leadership development, building strong minds and strong spirits. The Academy trains leaders through public speaking, confidence-building exercises, problem-solving activities, team challenges, mentorship from older youth, guidance from community role models, exposure to real-world responsibilities. Children learn not only to excel academically, but to step into leadership roles with dignity, strength, and self-respect. Leadership is not a title. It is a way of thinking. Roots and Wings develops that mindset. 6. Sovereign technology training. Youth will develop early familiarity with solar energy systems, satellite nodes and communication, private ledgers, AI-assisted learning, cybersecurity basics, digital responsibility and safety. Intro to coding and engineering. This prepares them to maintain future infrastructure, participate in sovereign projects, understand the digital language of modern sovereignty. Children raised in this academy will be fluent in both cultural and technological worlds. 7. Cultural preservation through youth. A sovereign nation survives through its children. Roots and Wings ensures culture does not drift, disappear, or dilute. Youth learn traditional knowledge, songs, stories, and ceremonies, family and clan relationships, tribal history, elders' teachings, respect, humility, and responsibility. They become cultural carriers, walking bridges between past and future. 8. INTLX, rewards and incentives for youth. The Academy integrates directly with your sovereign currency system. Youth earn INTLX credits for completing lessons, participating in events, volunteering in the community, finishing leadership challenges, learning language skills, achieving personal milestones. These credits can be exchanged for merchandise, books and materials, cultural items, educational rewards, access to special programs. For the first time, a child's cultural and educational growth becomes economic empowerment. 9. preparing the next 7 generations. Roots and Wings Academy does more than teach. It prepares. It prepares children to inherit the trust, the currency system, the corporations, the nonprofit programs, the solar and satellite infrastructure, the cultural responsibilities, the leadership duties. The academy shapes identity. It instills pride. It develops capability. It empowers purpose. The children raised in this academy will one day be the adults who run the sovereign system you are building today. They are the future trustees, the future educators, the future engineers, the future leaders. The next 7 generations rest within this academy. This is the foundation of a true sovereign nation. End of chapter 14. Chapter 15. Kolkhi's Sovereign Institute, the intellectual engine of the ecosystem. Every sovereign nation requires a place where knowledge is refined, where leaders are shaped, where innovation is developed, and where culture and intelligence converge into power. For your ecosystem, that place is the Kolkhi's Sovereign Institute, a higher learning institution designed to take youth and adults beyond basic education and into mastery. If Roots and Wings Academy builds the foundation, Kolkhi's builds the future. Here, sovereignty is studied, practiced, lived, and perfected. 1. The purpose of the Kolkhi's Sovereign Institute. The institute exists for one purpose: to produce sovereign thinkers capable of building, managing, and expanding the ecosystem. It prepares individuals to lead the trust, the corporate pillars, the nonprofit, the currency system, the satellite and solar networks, the educational pipelines, the youth programs, the cultural preservation systems. Kolkhi's is not just a school, it is a command center for sovereign intelligence. 2. A curriculum built around power, knowledge, and independence. Students of the Institute learn subjects that traditional institutions will never teach them: sovereign economics, asset-backed currency, trust law, internal credit systems, tribal monetary policy, advanced cultural studies, clan systems, survival knowledge, historical battles, non-surrender lineage, energy sovereignty, solar grid design, energy distribution, microgrid management, satellite and network engineering, node creation, secure communications, ledger synchronization, private ledger systems, digital sovereignty, encryption, auditing, internal authentication systems, artificial intelligence and computing AI tools, custom models, cybersecurity fundamentals, business leadership, scaling companies, managing teams, public relations, future planning, nonprofit governance, community impact, grant acquisition, educational program management, spiritual and mental strength training, resilience, discipline, identity, emotional intelligence. Kolkhi's is a fortress of knowledge, training sovereign citizens for real-world authority. 3. Certification pathways. The Institute offers specialized certification tracks, such as Sovereign Ledger Technician for those maintaining and securing the private ledger, Satellite Node Engineer for building and operating sovereign communication networks, Energy Sovereignty Technician for solar installation, grid management, and renewable strategy, Cultural Instructor Certification for those teaching language, heritage, and tradition, Business and Leadership Certifications for future managers, directors, and administrators in the ecosystem, Youth Mentor Certification for guiding students in Roots and Wings Academy. Each certification represents deeper responsibility and deeper participation in the sovereign future. 4. Practicum. Learning through real project involvement. Kolkhi's is not theory-based, it is action-based. Students will work on building satellite nodes, managing solar arrays, analyzing ledger transactions, producing digital content, running nonprofit events, supporting corporate operations, developing curriculum, launching products, maintaining the trust's digital infrastructure. The Institute is not separate from the sovereign ecosystem. It is embedded within it. Students learn by building the future with their own hands. 5. The Institute's role in governance. COLKIS prepares future leaders for positions such as trust administrators, youth program directors, nonprofit board members, corporate executives, energy and network supervisors, cultural preservation officers, community ambassadors, financial analysts, security and compliance specialists. This is where decision makers are shaped. This is where discipline and vision deepen. This is where sovereign governance begins. 6. Pathways for adults. Returning to sovereignty. While youth programs begin the journey, COLKS is also for adults seeking to reclaim what was lost. Many adults were never taught trust law, economic sovereignty, cultural fluency, technology independence, leadership structure. The Institute becomes a place for adults to reconnect with identity, gain new credentials, shift careers, rebuild confidence, contribute to the sovereign mission. Support youth from an empowered position. COLKIS is the bridge between lost knowledge and restored power. 7. The Institute and the Nonprofit Partnership. COLKIS Sovereign Institute works hand-in-hand with the nonprofit. The nonprofit funds programs. COLKIS trains the leaders. The nonprofit supports community needs. COLKIS designs solutions. The nonprofit runs youth programs. COLKIS trains the instructors. Together, they create the strongest educational pipeline in your sovereign ecosystem. A complete system from childhood to adulthood. 8. The Digital Campus, a sovereign learning environment. The Institute uses private platforms, secure nodes, custom software, AI teaching assistants, sovereign databases, encrypted communication channels. This ensures no data leakage, no external control, no surveillance, no dependency on federal systems. COLKIS becomes the first sovereign digital university built by and for the unconquered. 9. The long-term vision, a sovereign intellectual nation. In the future, COLKIS Sovereign Institute will expand into a full accreditation system, a research division, cultural and scientific publications, international tribal partnerships, satellite campuses across regions, global exchanges with other indigenous nations, a credentialing authority recognized across sovereign domains. COLKIS is not simply an institution. It is the intellectual nation behind the sovereign nation. It is where culture becomes knowledge, where knowledge becomes leadership, where leadership becomes sovereignty, where sovereignty becomes generational reality. This is your institute. This is your legacy. This is the training ground of the next era. End of Chapter 15. Chapter 16. The Community Partnership Initiative. Building bridges and expanding sovereign impact. A sovereign ecosystem does not stand alone. It grows through connection, through collaboration, through alliances that strengthen the people, expand opportunity, and unify the community around shared purpose. The Community Partnership Initiative, known simply as CPI, is the branch of your system that reaches outward. It brings together schools, tribes, local businesses, athletes, artists, and organizations to create an ecosystem of opportunity that empowers youth, families, and future generations. CPI is where sovereignty meets community, where education meets opportunity, where culture meets development, where your mission becomes visible beyond your own borders. 1. Why community partnership matters. A sovereign system rises strongest when it lifts others with it. CPI exists to strengthen community relationships, expand educational access, support youth development, create mentorship and apprenticeship paths, attract resources, sponsorships, and allies, showcase sovereignty through action, not theory. Community partnerships are not simply collaborations. They are alliances that help build a new economic, cultural, and educational landscape. When the community grows, the sovereign system grows with it. 2. CPI as the external arm of sovereignty. While the trust remains private and the corporations handle operations and the nonprofit manages internal programs, CPI steps out into the world. It becomes the public-facing educational ambassador, cultural representative. Youth Initiative Coordinator, Economic Development Collaborator, Athletic and Arts Supporter, bridge between sovereign programs and public institutions. CPI makes your sovereign mission visible, accessible, and impactful. 3. Educational partnerships. Growing the future together, CPI builds strong alliances with public schools, private schools, charter academies, adult education centers, local colleges and universities, tutoring and enrichment programs, after-school and summer initiatives. Together, they create opportunities such as cultural workshops, Eleponke language sessions, STEM and technology labs, solar energy demonstrations, AI and digital literacy classes, leadership and confidence-building seminars, field trips to sovereign facilities, youth internship and apprenticeship pipelines. By working with existing institutions, CPI amplifies its reach and introduces thousands of young people to sovereignty-based learning. 4. Athletic partnerships strengthening mind, body, and spirit. Athletics carries power, discipline, teamwork, identity, confidence. CPI partners with local sports leagues, after-school programs, community centers, martial arts studios, recreational teams, high school athletic departments, fitness and mental health organizations. These partnerships create youth conditioning programs, sports scholarships supported by INTLX credits, training camps, leadership through athletics workshops, mentor-based coaching programs. Athletics becomes another path to build sovereign leaders with strong bodies, minds, and spirits. 5. Cultural partnerships, preserving identity through community. CPI collaborates with museums, cultural centers, libraries, tribal organizations, storytelling groups, elder councils, language preservation networks. These partnerships support cultural festivals, art and craft workshops, traditional storytelling nights, language and action events, documentary and media production, cultural exchange programs. Culture becomes a living force in the community, not a memory locked away. 6. Economic partnerships, creating real pathways to opportunity. CPI seeks allies across the economic landscape, local businesses, construction companies, solar and energy organizations, tech startups, arts and design studios, nonprofits and foundations, healthcare and wellness providers. Through these partnerships, CPI creates internships, job placements, shadowing opportunities, apprenticeships, business mentorship programs, career exploration workshops, vendor and contract opportunities, youth entrepreneurship challenges. This turns the community into a training ground for sovereignty. 7. CPI and INTLX, empowerment through currency. CPI integrates the sovereign currency system into community programs. Youth, families, and participants can earn INTLX credits for attendance, volunteer service, community contribution, leadership participation, completion of workshops and programs, cultural or academic achievement. These credits can be exchanged for educational materials, merchandise, program access, food and essentials, cultural items, event tickets and opportunities. INTLX becomes a currency of empowerment, a reward for growth, participation, and contribution. 8. CPI as the gateway to the sovereign ecosystem. PBI is the welcoming path for those entering your sovereign world for the first time. Through CPI, people learn about Roots and Wings Academy, Kolke's Sovereign Institute, the trust in nonprofits, your energy and satellite projects, the currency system, cultural programs, youth pathways, economic opportunities. It creates awareness. It creates enthusiasm. It creates participation. CPI is the open door to a world built on sovereignty. 9. The long-term vision, a national, tribal, and global network. CPI does not stop at one community, it expands. Over time, CPI becomes a large-scale partnership network linking tribal nations, urban communities, educational systems, youth foundations, cultural alliances, technological institutions, energy cooperatives, economic development councils. Through CPI, your ecosystem becomes a model that other tribes, communities, and organizations can adopt, support, and learn from. It becomes a beacon of what sovereignty looks like when community and innovation walk together. This is not just outreach. This is expansion. This is how a sovereign ecosystem becomes a sovereign movement. End of chapter 16. And right now, chapter 17. Sovereign trust law, governance and compliance. A sovereign ecosystem is not built on inspiration alone. It is built on a structure. It is built on legal intelligence. It is built on governance that protects every asset, every program, every currency, and every generation. The Iron Roots Trust is more than a financial tool. It is the legal architecture that ensures sovereignty is recognized, defended, and preserved. Without proper trust law, the ecosystem would be vulnerable. With it, the ecosystem becomes untouchable. This chapter explains the legal foundation that supports your sovereign world. 1. The purpose of sovereign trust law exists for one reason: to protect assets from outside interference. It shields wealth, property, businesses, currency reserves, intellectual property, technology systems, equipment and infrastructure, royalties and licensing, future inheritances. A sovereign trust places these assets outside personal ownership and into a legal entity that no individual can claim, seize, or dismantle. It becomes the permanent protector of everything you build. 2. Private versus public jurisdiction. Most people operate under public jurisdiction: government courts, banking systems, corporate structures, probate courts, tax authorities, federal oversight. Your trust operates in private jurisdiction, where assets are not public record, contracts are internal, financials are confidential, control is managed by the trust instrument, governance is handled internally, succession is predetermined. This separation is critical. It ensures the ecosystem exists outside the reach of creditors, court judgments, tax seizures, predatory legal actions, family disputes, business liabilities, federal intrusion. Sovereignty requires privacy. Trust law provides it. 3. Governance. How the trust operates. A sovereign trust does not operate casually. It follows a structured governance model that includes: the trust document defines authority, rules, and protections. The trustee manages assets, executes decisions, protects beneficiaries. The beneficiaries receive long-term value but do not control the trust. The trust purpose guides all decisions according to the sovereign vision. Internal contracts define how businesses, nonprofits, and currency systems interact. Successor appointments ensure continuity across generations. This governance framework ensures stability even through leadership changes, economic shifts, legal challenges, technological evolution. Governance is the spine of sovereignty. 4. Compliance. Staying aligned with law while remaining independent. A sovereign trust does not operate in defiance of the law. It operates in mastery of the law. Compliance includes filing I reports when required, maintaining proper corporate documentation, keeping accurate internal records, following rules for tax-exempt or taxable structures, honoring the legal distinctions between trust and personal property, ensuring businesses under the trust follow state and federal regulation. Compliance ensures your sovereignty is recognized, not challenged. It shows the world this system operates within the law, but it is guided by its own authority. This balance creates longevity. 5. Asset protection through legal design. The trust protects your assets through layers. Layer 1. Ownership. Assets belong to the trust, not the individual. Layer 2. Contracts. Businesses pay fees, royalties, or licensing to the trust. Layer 3. Structure. Multiple LLCs and DBAs provide separation. Layer 4. Private jurisdiction. Trust records remain confidential. Layer 5. Successor planning, simultaneous protection of future generations. Together, these create an impenetrable legal shield. No creditor, no ex-partner, no lawsuit, no mistake, no agency, no instability. Nothing can dismantle what the trust protects. 6. The relationship between trust, nonprofit, and corporations. Your ecosystem uses a tri-structure model. The trust owns assets, currency reserves, intellectual property, contracts. The corporations operate businesses and generate revenue. The nonprofit supports community, education, and cultural programs. This design ensures no single entity has all the power. No weakness can collapse the system. No external pressure can disrupt sovereignty. No government action can dismantle the structure. This is how powerful families and institutions across the world protect their legacy through diversified but connected legal frameworks. Number 7. Succession, protecting the next 7 generations. Sovereignty is measured not by what you build today, but by what survives when you are gone. Your trust includes succession planning that ensures children inherit benefit, not liability. Leadership transitions are seamless. Assets remain intact. Programs continue without interruption. Future trustees are prepared and trained. Family disputes cannot dissolve the system. The mission survives long after this generation. Succession is the legal version of cultural continuity. It ensures that sovereignty does not die. It evolves. 8. Zero tolerance clauses and internal policies. Your sovereign trust includes internal rules that protect ethical conduct, asset usage, financial integrity, program operations, leadership behavior. Zero tolerance clauses ensure that fraud is impossible, misuse of property is blocked, violation of roles results in immediate removal, beneficiary interests remain protected. These rules prevent internal collapse, the most dangerous threat to any sovereign system. 9. Trust law as a reflection of identity. A sovereign trust is more than paperwork. It is the legal expression of culture, heritage, identity, strength, wisdom, survival, future. It transforms trauma into protection, history into structure, vision into law, desire into legacy. Trust law is how you tell the world, I am unconquered, my family is protected, my legacy is permanent, and my sovereignty is not up for negotiation. End of chapter 17.